I not like that? Hang on, take two. So Tuesday, 17th of January 2023. This evening's show, the panel will be analysing Saturday's lacklustre defeat at Watford, discussing the quite frankly farcical situation of why Michael Appleton is still the manager of Blackpool Football Club and where we go from here. And I'm John Aspinall, and this is the Seasiders Podcast Extra Time Special. An Appleton a day keeps the championship away.
A small town from the north of England with a great tradition.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to the Seasiders Podcast, match reaction / extra time special. An Appleton a day keeps the championship away. Can't take credit for that. That was Connor's masterstroke in the Seasiders Podcast chat earlier. Yeah, welcome everybody on the stream to the show. Ian Gilpin, South Shore Seasiders MB, Craig. Who else we got? That's it for now. We've got a full house and a full packed show tonight. We've got Nick, Pete, Raggy, and Tim. Tim, it's going to be very interesting stream this evening, to say the least, given the fact Mr. Appleton is still in charge.
It certainly is. But before we get to such mundane matters, John, congratulations on the TalkSport accreditation, although with that start, you might lose it quicker than Appleton loses his job.
It's the fact that we've been signed up by TalkSport has made me all nervous. I don't know what buttons to click. It was like when we did the live show. I was a gibbering wreck at the beginning of that, but got my flow. Yeah, what Tim's talking about there is pleased to announce Blackpool, and also the Seasiders Podcast, is now part of the TalkSport fan network. What's that, I hear you ask? Well, it's just basically loads of drill adverts all over the audio podcast and arguments.
And guest appearance from Adrian Durham.
So nothing will change really. It's just they're now hosting the show and will be not just me anyway. It's all of us. Whenever they want Blackpool FC comment on TalkSport, you'll probably hear one of our voices. What else? Yeah, they'll be giving us a bit of marketing help, expertise, and the equipment show types, that kind of thing. So yeah, watch this space. Anyway, welcome back, Raggy. It's a long time overdue since you were last here. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Are you fully wound up and ready to go?
Yeah. Still not calmed down. that was a long journey home, that hungover. Thinking about Saturday.
Hey, Tim, I didn't go in the end, and neither did you. I was thinking, thank fuck I didn't go.
I have my nephew to thank, who rather fortuitously had his 21st party that night. So, yeah.
We were all
the time was
as well, weren't we?
We were. I listened back to the preview show we did, Pete, with the Watford guys the other day, and I was laughing at Tim saying, "You know what's going to happen here, don't you? We're all going to go there in high spirits, and we're going to lose 3-0."
2-0.
He said 3-0, didn't you? So nearly got it right.
Yeah, and that wasn't far off. Listen, 'twas ever so, wasn't it? You know, how many times have we gone anywhere, be it where we got a chance to get promotion, we went to Lincoln and to Walsall all those years ago. Whatever it is, you guarantee. I always used to say, if we ever get a big crowd at home, we'd lose. We just always seem to underwhelm after when we're excited. And We had
It
obviously
happens every time, doesn't it? Every time we get a big crowd and high expectation.
Yeah. I probably during the
next time
Holloway
we
here,
probably-
it was the time that we booked that trend, and
Yeah, it was.
and to a certain degree under Critchley as well with the promotion season, albeit he didn't get the crowds. But I must admit, I could just you could see it happening, and I'm not proud to say that I foretold it, but
Called it. Right, so what we're going to do on the show this evening, we're going to do a more in-depth reaction to the Watford game. Obviously, I don't know if anyone saw on Saturday, I did an instant match reaction with some callers, which was quite good. But now we're going to discuss in detail the farce that took place at Vicarage Road. First topic is the Baffling team lineup, which Pete matched. It was pretty different to what we said. Maxwell, Connolly, Ekpateta, Thornley, Husband, Carey, Patino, Bowler, Rogers, Hamilton, and Badine. So let's go to Nick first, because we've not spoke to him yet. Hi, Nick, by the way.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, I was really looking forward to it. I was going to try and see if I could go and end up not being able to, and then ended up not even being able to watch it, which turned out quite lucky, really. But when I saw that lineup, because like you guys and everyone, it felt like there was, I think after the Forest game, and then getting Bowler and Rogers, and then we got the lad from Germany, it just felt like there was a little bit of a buzz all of a sudden after the not being one. And I'm not saying I expect us to go there and win or anything, but it just felt like, right, this is a bit of a reset now. Forget what's gone before. Can we start to, move up the table? And then you see that team, and I just felt completely deflated again. And it's like he's done it again. He's taken the joy out of it before we've even kicked a ball. And I get, obviously, Pervader not playing was a blow, but for me, I thought Lions had a very good debut, and I get it's away from home, but I'd have left him in, and then it means you can play Connolly in the centre of midfield, and it gives a bit of cover for Carey and Patino, who we see week in, week out. We get overrun in midfield because we've not got anybody to break up the play and to protect the defence, and then to give it to those guys to help us go forward with attack. So you just feel like before it's even started, we're up against it. Is it Operation 0-0? And that very rarely works out well when you kind of set out. I get setting out not to get beat, but I just feel like we really missed an opportunity. I know they're a decent side. They should probably be higher up than they are, but for the poor start they had, and they've a decent squad, but I felt like we could really go there with some confidence and get something, at least a point. And I just felt completely deflated when I saw that lineup.
Pete, over to you next. We did discuss Callum Connolly's inclusion, if you recall, in the preview show, and the key two positions of the two central midfielders sitting in front of the back four. We did predict he'd play Connolly, played him. We did predict he'd play Patino, played him, and it was a kind of and Maxwell as well. So we kind of predicted everything that he'd do, rather than the best team that probably would have gone and win the game.
We didn't predict Gary Medine, though, did we?
No, no.
I was there on Saturday, and I was really looking forward to it because I haven't been for ages and ages and ages. And I heard the team at about 12. Somebody in the pub got the team from somebody, but they've got Pervader in it. Other than that, it was absolutely spot on. But I wasn't sure whether Pervader got injured pre-match or the day before. Somebody said the day before, and that when I got that, and I think I whizzed it over to you lot, and I just thought, what's going on? Why has he not got? We've got three holding midfielders now that are available, if you count Connolly as one. And it was just the same. It was that midfield, and then all of a sudden you've got Morgan Rogers in, which I can understand that. Although he's not played in that position, has he? He's not played at all, hardly. And I just couldn't. I mean, I love Gary Medine, but I couldn't believe he was playing after the way Yates has been playing and the way we were set up. And it proved it on Saturday because of the long balls we kept. I mean, Raggy will tell you that we just kept booting it up to him all the time, and from all over the place, and it just got us nowhere whatsoever. So it was, and the atmosphere. Well, I don't know. I haven't seen the thing what we've got to speak about, but it was just a really strange atmosphere in the ground. It wasn't what I expected at all.
What do you mean, Pete? Would you like to elaborate?
I just thought it wasn't as. I thought it was going to be really buzzing, and it started off okay, but it went off really quickly, and you can really feel the hatred, but the real venom towards Appleton. And because I've not experienced that in the ground with it about him, and I was quite shocked how bad it was, and it got worse and worse as the game went on, to the point that it was pretty fierce around me. I wasn't in the middle bit. I couldn't get in. It was too full by the time I got in. But yeah, it was. I just found it really difficult to be present with the way it was. It was horrible, to be honest. Understandable, but not a pleasant experience. And it's just I could feel that it's gone. It's gone wrong. It's not going to get better, and the fans have had enough. I don't know what you think, Raggy.
Yeah, well, exactly that. I was there on Friday night with a load of others, and there was a real buzz around it all week. Everyone was buzzing on Friday night. Information that Watford had a lot of injuries, 7 first-team players that were available, and it was going to be made up of youth team players, and that came from someone via the coach at Watford. So everyone's thinking the same. Blackpool must have known the same information. And then Saturday again, everyone ready. Then the team comes out.
Was it like a pin in a balloon? Was it like a pin pop in a balloon? And when you saw the team sheet,
everyone's asking the question like, "What the hell's this?" Also, everyone's a little bit gutted that Pervader wasn't playing after his recent games. But as far if he's injured, it can't be helped. But even then, still all right, going to the game. But when that game set off, I knew after 5 minutes, we are not getting anywhere today. No chance. He's at best getting a draw, and it just worked out like that. It didn't change. Got to half time, hoping that maybe he'll change it second half. Didn't do. I don't know. I was fuming by the end anyway. I left giving abuse to all sorts of people by the end. It was probably a lot for the way they were on about in that ground anyway as well.
You can't drink. You can't drink in that stadium, either, can you? So that dampened the mood a bit.
Just the whole day just did me head in the end. You just herded around like animals as football fans, and I can't stand it. But should get used to it by now. But it's just a product of what we was watching and what we've been watching, and nothing's going to change. He's not going to change. I've gone through this with you on that group and that, and everyone knows the stats. And he's had 80-odd games as a Championship manager over his career at various clubs. He's got 79 points or 81 points, a point a game, basically. And 80 games is virtually 2 seasons. And he's averaged a point a game as a manager. Well, that's relegation twice, isn't it? So I don't know why we think that he's going to change it. Why I keep hearing people say, wait another game. Give him another game. Been hearing that for the last few weeks. And we're just running out of games. And it's just going to be the same. Maximum we'll get is a point. Again, a point a game from here on in is the maximum we're going to have, because that's all he's ever got in his whole career. And you can see it from the way he sets the team up. And they don't enjoy playing that. There's no way they enjoy playing that. That team and that squad is more than good enough. Everyone knows it. That's why everyone gets angry. And it should be attacking. And they should have gone to Watford, especially knowing that it got a load of injuries, load of young lads. I mean, how many people came on making the debut? He kept shouting out over the bleeding tannery. They should have been at him from minute one. And Yates on the bench. I mean, I don't know. It's just like Blackburn leaving Berreton Diaz on the bench, isn't it? You'd be like, why? What are you doing that for? They wouldn't do it.
For a
I know it doesn't always work out, but we were on the front foot this week after that Forest game and them signings. And he had everyone at his disposal there, barring Pervader, and ridiculous. But people have their opinions, but we are going down with him. And then people will say, well, who do you want? Who do you want? Do you know what? We're going down with him. So it doesn't matter if it's me, you, or the bleeding postman that takes over. Something, because we're going down. If not, that's it.
Yeah.
And he refuses to change the team while we're playing the game. I think it was when he changed the fullback that I went, actually. I think it was when he brought on Lyons for Connor.
Like change when you're chasing the game, wasn't it?
Right, tactical masterclass. Yeah, tactical masterclass. Right back for right back.
Park that, Raggy. Well, I've got that later on in the notes, so let's tear that to pieces a bit later.
But the fact that he's not willing to change the team or to make changes in the game and make the right changes, it sort of mirrors the football club at the minute, not willing to make the change with him. So maybe
do you know, I would go as far, the conspiracy theorist in me would suggest that Appleton almost deliberately picked a team not to win that game.
Yeah, it certainly looked like it, didn't it? For whatever reason.
Yeah. You've won your first game in 10 the week before with an encouraging performance from your right back, who is a right back rather than somebody filling in there. You've got Yates coming on and setting up a goal. I could understand why he might have rested him in the FA Cup game, but sets up a goal and scores one. And, you know, it's disappointing to lose Pavida, but having lost Pavida, for Yates still not to get in the team is it's negligent. Well, from a lawyer's perspective, it's negligent. No manager is going to leave your top scorer on the bench when it doesn't matter what Watford's position is in the league. That's actually completely irrelevant in this game because they were so short of players. I think they played 6 defenders in the starting lineup. And the rest of
Tim, they had 17 first team squad players out of 24. 17 out of 24.
And it was, you know, the Watford fans all thought they were going to lose the game, you know, because they, you know, it's a little bit like, you know, when it's even worse, I think, than when we had our injury and illness crisis about who we could put out. But the whole makeup of the team's wrong anyway, because you've got 2 relatively lightweight central midfield players, which isn't so bad if you're going to play it really tight in midfield. But then we've got an unfit bowler playing on the right-hand side who even we said probably wouldn't start because he probably wasn't fit to. But hugging the wing. You've got CJ on the side hugging the wing, which leaves this massive gap in the middle. He's shoved Rodgers in number 10 role when, you know, I mean, the one thing that Yates and Medine do is they know each other and they play quite well around each other. So why the hell he doesn't drop Yates in there? I don't know. I said it's almost like he's trying to.
He's done it on
provoke
purpose.
A reaction.
Yeah.
Whether it's from us or whether it's from the board, you know, you can only speculate. But to be honest, you know, I endorse everything else everybody says about the deflation you feel when you see that team. But it's beyond that. It is almost like he's trying to press a button. Well, he's most certainly pressed it with the fans. The question is he going to press it elsewhere with the board? Because that was a disgrace, that lineup. Bearing in mind what he had available to him.
Well, everyone...
He had an opportunity, didn't he, to put Yates on? Because Rodgers got a really horrible injury quite sort of halfway through the first half, and he should never have stayed on. He was struggling right the way through the game then. Why did he leave him on? He could have brought Yates on then. Okay. Quite easily.
It's like the Blackpool Grinch. You know, you talk about you know, putting the pin in the balloon of optimism. But seriously, there was a decent amount of optimism, which even if we'd lost the game, if we'd gone about it the right way, to be fair, like we've done in the previous games, against Sheffield United and Forest and Hull, you know, and Sunderland, if we'd gone about it the right way, even if we hadn't got the result, he'd have still had the optimism going into the Huddersfield game. But it's almost like he's gone there and thought, optimism, Pim, fuck that to you lot. That's how it comes across.
Yeah. What that team lineup and performance did, there was people, myself included, was kind of teetering on the fence with Appleton. I know quite a few other people. But that team that he picked and the way the team played that day, I've seen a groundswell of people leaving the fence and all joining the anti-Appleton bandwagon now. And I don't know one person now who does not want him out of the club. So,
Little Phil.
oh right, well he's backing himself. He's backed himself into a corner, hasn't he?
To be fair, Raggy, I think he knows he's not the right person, but it's like it's not his fault, and it is his fault now. It is, but it is. Thing is, all of us here, and every other Blackpool supporter, with probably the exception of Phil, can see that he should not be the manager of the club. Now, how can Simon Sadler and bullshit not see it? Simon's supposed to be a bloody supporter. Can he not see it? Why can't he see it?
One thing he did do was react quite quickly when things went sour with Grayson, and he was quite ruthless almost in the way that he read the crowd. Maybe because of the Forest result and because we didn't play that badly and there wasn't many there, and we didn't play that badly against Sunderland and Sheffield United, even though we didn't pick up many the points we wanted. That's almost like put the Band-Aid over the weeping sore, isn't it? And perhaps we haven't had the vociferous opposition to Appleton. There was a lot of 50-50s, most certainly at Wigan, and I think it's gone more against him. But actually, at least in those games, he set it up properly to try and get a result. And I felt like we were doing our best. We were nowhere near our best. I mean, we'll go on to discuss it, but that first 10 or 15 minutes was shambolic.
Well, they were all over.
Let's move on then to Tim. You can run with this. Terrible start is point 2. Flapswell living up to his name, obviously, in the first few minutes. They've nearly scored from the resulting flap. Was it they hit the bar, didn't they? And they could have easily been 2 down within 10 minutes.
It was probably the most inept and unprofessional start to a game I can recall, most certainly this season. I think we had a couple under Critchley before Calderwood came in, which were rather shambolic. But this was like on another level. And what we've done is we're putting there's some of the square pegs into the round holes, isn't there? So you've got one of Patino or Carey having to play the holding position, which isn't really their forte. You've shoved Rodgers into what seems to be like the number 10 role. I don't know whether he plays there. Maybe he does, maybe he doesn't. But he didn't come on there the week before. He came on the wing. So he's a new player to a new team, and it's probably the most pivotal role that we've got. You've then got Bowler Hug in the wing, and we're not really finding him properly, but he's not quite fit anyway, and he shouldn't. I don't think he should have started. We're launching balls up. They're coming straight back at us. We're giving the ball away. It was like watching a comedy of errors. It really was. It was. I couldn't believe what I was watching. I really couldn't. There was just no. There was no pattern. There was no. There was no plan that we seemed to be playing to. It was just chaotic. Chaotic is the only adjective I can use for it. It was just. I was just like watching it, and I was just like shaking my head, thinking, "What the hell's going on here?"
Raggy, over to you. Obviously, I think that first 10-minute spell was right in front of the Blackpool fans. So, obviously, the mood wasn't great once that team sheet's come out. How was the mood in the away end after that first 10-minute spell?
That was it, wasn't it? Life struck out of the fans straight away. Like I say, started off with the first couple of minutes, people singing and chanting, and then it just dies away because I'm sure everyone pretty much feels the same. They just think, "Oh, here we go again." There's going to be not going to be much excitement in that game at all, and there wasn't. And I took my missus down there for the weekend, and she came to the game. She's not into football or anything really, and she's like, "This is rubbish."
It didn't really sell the game to her then.
Well, I was glad in a way because I don't want her to enjoy it because she'll want to come again, and I don't want that. So he's done me a favour on that point. Well, I thought it was just an honest shout from someone who doesn't watch it. This is boring, and we're rubbish. That was So, yeah, I don't know. I can't even. I'm just mad. That's me. I'm mad. I just think it's. I've said all along. I don't blame him but he needs to go anyway because he's not good enough to get us out of relegation battle. But I am blaming him now, from now on, because I think Tim's half right there. With he might actively be not trying to win or doing something to wind people up. He's certainly winding me up, but.
Well, the thing is, if your heart's not in it anymore and you want
Sorry.
away, then one way to do it is listen. I'm not saying it is, but one way to do it is to make sure your employer make the position untenable with the employer, so they get rid of you and they pay your notice payoff.
And it stands
if you want out, maybe it's lost the dressing room with the main players. It wouldn't surprise. There's some big personalities in there. I don't know. I can't understand when he's got that positivity how he can destroy it.
Well, they're leaving out of Yates. They're standing there with his hands in his pockets. I know we don't particularly want someone running up and down the sidelines, but it shows nothing. It's so uninspiring. And then that change for Lyons for Connolly, that was it. That just said it all. I mean, total waste of time. I don't know what he was doing. I don't know what his thoughts are.
Hey, let's move on to the next topic. Insipid first half. Obviously, the first 10 minutes wasn't great. We only had I think our only chance of note throughout the game was quite a tame free kick from Bowler, with Rodgers the only sort of player showing any attacking intent, I thought, in the first half. The rest was just shite, wasn't it?
It was quite good the first half because I got to see quite a lot of the game because it was all at our end. Because my eyesight's not great. Couldn't see all at the other end.
Did anyone ask if your autograph, by the way?
No, but I did get somebody said you did the pod last night, didn't you?
You see, you're getting famous. It's coming.
Yeah. I did. I got that. No signings, unfortunately. Nothing like that. I got a few comments in the pub, but no, it was insipid. It was. They started like we should have started. That's how I thought we were going to start, and I thought they've got a load of kids, They said, he said that the guy from Watford on Friday said that the lad Sarr is hot and cold. And of course, he was bloody hot that day. He was their man of the match. And
two kids came on and scored, were involved in the goal, I think.
And they knocked the ball about really well, like we should be doing down the wings and things. But it wasn't just an insipid first half, John. It was a pretty insipid second half, to be honest with you. It didn't really get any better. No. We had one shot that was sort of blocked, I think, from Yates, and that was about it. And Medine didn't do. I mean, he had a shocking game, or Gary. It was insipid. It was worse than insipid. It was flat and. We
seem to just resort to doing like these rather transparent diagonals.
Oh, Tim, there you go. Point 4. Point 4.
I
was going to let Nick go on about these because he's not said much yet.
Well, because I didn't watch the game.
Let Tim do the diagonals bit then. Point 4 diagonals. Only tactic in the second half, bypassing the midfield. Back
in the halcyon days of the Holloway and the class of 2010, we did play diagonals, but we played them in a rather inventive way, which involved actually putting the ball somewhere near the player that you want to receive it. And if you didn't win the first ball, then you would win the second ball. So
and it wasn't our only attacking option.
No, it wasn't.
The game.
But it was it was a way of switching play and going on the attack quickly. And it was part of a series of moves and game plans that Holloway worked very, very effectively with the players that he had. So you had the full backs who could hit diagonals, the centre backs who could hit diagonals, and then you had the likes of Brett and Fletch going. Varney and whatever, either winning the ball or not winning the ball, and then picking up. Then we had others coming in to pick up the second ball because that was the game plan. These were just wild and speculative.
They were to CJ Hamilton, though, Tim. The majority of them was to CJ, the worst header of the ball in the entire team. I couldn't believe what I was watching. I literally could not believe what I was watching.
And if they weren't doing that, they were short passing Bowler, so that Bowler was, if he was going to get it, was always going to struggle to beat his man. And it was like watching a shit kids game that run by somebody who doesn't know how to run a football team. That's what it looked like. It just looked like, and I was actually quite embarrassed to watch it.
I was waiting for that.
Oh no, I wasn't going to throw you into the lions, John.
I knew Nick was going to say that. I knew he was going to say that.
I'm sure Bolton under 10s play a lot more progressive and inventive football. Than
Play
we saw at
2-1-2 in the current phase, so promotion as well.
There you go.
Thing
So
is,
you've got a
John,
better record than Appleton as well.
When I saw that lineup after being deflated, I thought, well, what's he trying to achieve there? And I'm thinking, is it 2 wide men cross it to Medine? But it doesn't sound like we even did that.
No.
So it makes it even more bizarre.
We didn't even hit Medine with the long balls, did we? Which is just mental.
We did sometimes, but he didn't do anything with him anyway. There was no one around him, or it was just. Ugh.
Well, if you're going to do a long diagonal, you've got to have players looking for the second ball. There's no point in doing it otherwise, because the person you're aiming at is going to probably win 20% of them. But even if they win it, they've generally got the back to the goal, and then they've got to play somebody else in. So they've got to have somebody around them. If you just lump it to Medine, he's normally too busy fighting with the defender to actually focus on winning the ball, for one. But then secondly, if you're not actually aiming it at him anyway, then he's got even less chance of getting it. But if you haven't got players playing around him, like your Yateses, who are looking for flicks off it. Listen, Medine can be effective. He was very effective with Pavida, because Pavida was playing in or around him. And, and Medine can. If the
He's
ball
effective with Jezza as well, as he has been proven, isn't he? It's been proven when he plays with Joey.
Yeah, and seemingly with Pavida. But if you've got to play a rookie in the number 10 role, doesn't know, who's never played really with Medine before, well, never hasn't played with Medine before,
And he was injured.
then he's not going to know how to play that. And most certainly, Bowler and Hamilton were so far wide they could almost have been playing on another pitch. So it's just whatever the strategy was, it was so flawed. Well, you don't have to see what happened. The fact that we had one P-roll shot to the keeper almost from Bowler as our only shot on target all game against a team full of youth players and second string is basically sums it up, doesn't it?
Yeah. Right, Raggy, 0.5, crying out for change. Slavan Bilic made 2 changes at half time. We made none. We probably should have made changes. I heard a report, or I read a report on the match that said Slavan Bilic made those 2 changes because he said, well, Blackpool were offering no attacking threat whatsoever, so I thought I might as well go for it.
Yeah, we would.
Yeah, and he was absolutely right if that's what he was thinking, wasn't he? And I think did they not make 4 substitutions?
Yes,
before?
4 before us. Yeah. 4 before us.
And I think, am I right? Did we make our first one when we went 1-0 down?
Yes,
I think?
correct. Yeah.
We brought Yates on, did we?
Yeah. So
And Raggy, we were screaming on the podcast thread. Well, this isn't hindsight. For 10, 15 minutes beforehand, everybody was saying, make a change, because it's not working. We need, get Yates on. Everybody was screaming, why the fucking hell's Yates not on yet? And
it was
it's
the same.
It's not with the benefit of hindsight. Everybody could see it.
Tim, it was the same in the ground. They were singing Yates' song for 10 minutes before all that went on, before they scored. Everyone knows it. Everyone can see it.
What was the mood? What was the mood in the concourse at half time, Raggy?
Well, it was the same. Well, I had a couple of conversations. It was like it felt. I'll tell you what it felt like. It felt like Burnley at half time, even though we weren't losing. But then we know what happened the second half against Burnley. But I think you were talking about it last night on that group. He used to make changes.
Just going to say that
early
on, he did it at Burnley,
and for some strange reason, he stopped doing it completely. And I have no idea why. So for me, it felt like that at Burnley. It felt like, this is not right. It's the wrong. They're not playing the right way. And then he changed something, but he didn't change anything this time. So to me, he set up to play for a point at best. And maybe hope we nick a goal, but he didn't go to win that game. No chance. He went to not lose.
Pete, as Raggy's just said there, 0.6 and our Seaside 7 playing for a point. I've penned Appleton clearly set out to draw the game or nick a win.
I think that's being generous to him. Yeah, I think he did. I couldn't believe, like I say, we still can't believe the team selection. And we were just on the back foot all the time. So, we were never going to hold out against that Watford side with that amount of pace and in the team. And it was never going to happen. So you can't play for a point. Like we keep saying, they had their kids out. They had 17 injuries. We'd got players in for the first time. We had a squad to choose from. We should have been going there and thinking, we're going to go for this because this is 3 points and we need 3 points at the moment. And to sit back and not change it and basically stand there with your finger up your ass, it was unbelievable playing for a point. Fucking hell.
It'd be all right if he took his hands out of his pocket long enough to stick his finger up his arse.
Well, you never know what holes he's got there. It was horrible.
Yeah. Tim, their goal came, was it like 75 minutes around that time? It was coming, wasn't it? It was pretty obvious they were going to score.
Yeah, it was one way traffic, wasn't it? And it seemed to be wave after wave of attacks. And as much as I decry Maxwell, I thought he actually made the first save was quite a good one. But obviously, to be fair, the young lad had come on his debut. I think he'd have been on a few minutes, hadn't he? Followed up and finished well. But it was indicative of the way that we were playing. It was a matter of time, hence the reason why there was the repeated calls for do something. Don't just to use the expression, stand there with your hands in your pockets. I
prefer finger up your arse. Was it?
Yeah, well, maybe that's more appropriate. But do something to effect change. And and again, it's we've picked up on it on the last few pods, haven't we? And Raggy's right. The one thing that I was always quite enthusiastic about with Appleton was his willingness to be unpopular almost by making a change that might really piss the player off who's coming off at half time. To get substitutes at half time. I know it happens more, to be fair, now because of the 5 sub rule. But to get hooked at half time, or even I've seen some in the first half, is rather you're not going to be happy as a player, are you? But he was prepared to do it because if it wasn't working, he wanted to change it. And we saw that. And we all liked that. We all liked, because it was the antithesis to Critchley, who never made a change until he had to. And he's almost like morphed into a worse version of Critchley. At least Neil Critchley went out with a game plan. Neil Critchley went out with a game plan, which I didn't always like, to stop the opposition and then build from there. But he had a game plan built around that. This 4-3-3 is no game plan if you're not going to play the best players in the right positions. And it can work, but you've got to believe you're going to win the game. You can't go into a 4-3-3 in the Championship and try and hang on for a point. That's just nonsense. You might as well play, 5-3-2 or 4-5-1. Whatever you're going to do that if you want to go and play for a point. But don't go play for a point and basically show your arse to the opposition, which is what we do by playing 3 young lads in the 3 central midfield positions with no cover. We might as well show our arse in Burton's window.
Yeah. I mean, I think Dave Jenkins put a point down a minute ago, and he was right. How can you go play for a point if you've got, as Tim said as well, the 3 young lads in midfield? If you're going to play for a point, you might as well stick Connolly and Dougal in there, and then push Carey or Patino a bit in the number 10 position, and play it that way. At least you've got some defensive cover. Don't play 3 bloody young attacking players.
We obviously didn't trust them because he just instructed the team to bypass them.
Two wingers with it.
Yeah, and a centre forward.
He was never going to move from the touchline.
Yeah. Right, final 0.7. Raggy, right subs. wrong time. I know we mentioned it earlier. We instantly looked like more of an attacking threat when Jerry came on, probably too little too late. And then the bizarre replacing Connolly with Lyons at right back, a like for like, and then giving Shane Lavery a whole injury time to go on and make a change. Yeah, 90 minutes he came on.
Yeah, I'd long gone. I was being told in the pub that Lavery had come on. That's how long ago I'd gone. Before that, I'd had enough. But well, Lyons should have been starting, and a defensive midfielder should have been starting, and Yates should have been starting. And you can argue over Maxwell and Grimshaw. Probably time for Grimshaw now. But right subs, wrong time. I don't know if that's right. Right subs.
No.
Just going to the Lavery one. It's like the Watford put that young lad on just to blood him for 2 minutes. You don't put an established player on for 90 seconds to 2 minutes. It was actually in injury time, as I recall. It was in injury time. I think it was even the second minute of it. You don't put him on. What's the point? We're 2-0 down. We're not playing for time. Why?
Perhaps
I actually felt a bit sorry for Lavery. I thought it was a bit disrespectful to put him on.
He might be on a performance bonus. Who knows? I don't know.
Well, mate. Well, I hadn't thought about that, to be fair. But I've got to say, I looked at that and thought, what are you doing and why? Because if you're going to bring him on, he should have been on 15, 20 minutes, 25 minutes, where he can actually affect the game. And we've seen him affect the game. We saw him score a fantastic goal against Sunderland. He deserved, particularly set against that performance, to be given a longer run in the team.
Yeah.
Bowler clearly wasn't fit. Bowler won't be fit for 4 or 5 games. He was always a player. He's always on his form. He reminded me a little bit like Charlie. Charlie had always need 2 or 3 games to get into the stride. I think Bowler's a little bit the same. And you know, he should have been sub on Saturday. End of and played 30 minutes.
Nick, your thoughts on the subs?
Well, I echo what the guys have said. It's too little, too late, and like Raggy was talking about before, and Tim, I was the same. I liked it when earlier in the season he wasn't afraid to make early changes. He did it a few times, and even then, if it didn't work, I think at Stoke we were poor, and he made a change at half time, and we still lost the game. But you think, well, at least he's tried to do something and not just left it to 75 minutes when you go 1-0 down, and all right, now we're going to do something. And for some reason, he's stopped doing that now, and it's just another thing that leaves you scratching your head about him. There's I don't think there's any positives at the moment with it, which is why so many people, don't want him as manager anymore. I'll give you my views on it when we've finished talking about the match summary. But yeah, it's bizarre.
Okay, Pete, final word on the game and the subs before we move on to the.
I think I agree with Raggy. I don't think they were right. They were right subs at all. I think they should have been on in the first place. Some of them, and Yatesy should have been on at half time, or in fact, he should have been on when Rodgers was injured, because he should have come on straight away, and he should have moved it around. Should have had Dougal in and swapped a couple of players about. It was, everyone could see it. Everybody could see it.
You'd like to think he'd realise at half-time that I've made a bit of a fucking disaster of this, so I'm going to change it. But no.
Well, that's why I think he's getting stubborn and arrogant. And it's like, I just read someone put on there, Charlie Patino can't tackle to save his life. No, he can't. That's not what his job is.
No.
But he's been asked to play in these kind of roles. I mean, that's not his job at all, is it? Why was he not pushed a bit further up the pitch and a defensive midfielder in, or Carey pushed a bit further up?
Well, we've got the players to do that, haven't we? We've got the defensive midfielders now. But why play him in that role? Right, did anyone...
Our new recruit had played 26 games, by the way, this season. It's not like he hasn't been playing. And Bowler's had 4 games. Morgan's had even less. And
if they're fit, and why are they on the bench? If they're not fit, why are they on the bench?
Mm.
And I don't know. I mean, I know what you're saying about Bowler. Maybe he shouldn't have started. I think they were always going to put him on because most people were travelling down there because of that thing. But I'd probably prefer people playing straight away if they're not fit and bringing them off rather than sticking them on for the last half an hour. But either way, they could have put that tribal in there. If he'd have been blowing out of his house after an hour, we'd take him off.
Yeah.
Well,
He was the only one that scared him, though, wasn't he?
well, that's the player he wanted. That's the position he wanted filling, and he's got a player there for it. He's arguably got 2 or 3 players for it and not used them.
Another good shout from Dave Jenkins here. When Appleton came in after Holloway, he sucked all the oxygen out of the place. And he's done it again.
Voldemort.
He has, Dave. He certainly has. He sucked the oxygen. Well, yeah, in fact, when I read this quote or heard this quote after the game, I sucked oxygen in and I expelled a plethora of expletives after hearing Michael Appleton say, "We were all right today. We were fine. The performance was fine. It's fine margins." Who wants to come in on this?
Well, but one of the things he doesn't think we're a championship club. He doesn't think we're a big club. Ever since Sunderland away, when he made a comment along the lines of, "We have to remember who we are," that's when, in my mind, it was. He doesn't believe it. I'm not sure anyone. I'm not sure other people at the club believe it. I'm not sure half the fans believe it. But I've gone on about it numerous times to everyone. I've stuck numerous things on that podcast group to show you. You know, the most famous FA Cup final in history.
I agree with you, Raggy. I'm with you.
We've got a Ballon d'Or winner.
Yeah.
Man City haven't got a Ballon d'Or winner.
I got that WhatsApp message from you at 2:00 in the morning.
Yeah, that was it. I was having me round.
We need to add Raggy to the patrons group. Actually, I'll add him to it after this.
But it's true. We've got Ballon d'Or winners that big clubs haven't got. Now, Man City, Tottenham, Arsenal, Chelsea, Everton, Leeds, Rangers, Celtic, they haven't got a Ballon d'Or winner. We have. The most famous FA Cup final in history is ours. The World Cup final, the man of the match, Blackpool player. You know, we're playing a unique colour. We're the most famous, most successful playoff team. We've won every division in the playoffs. We're from a unique town, one of the most famous towns in the country, and I don't think people believe it. And I know you can't just rest on your history, but we are a historic football club, and they need to start believing it. And if the manager doesn't believe it,
it permeates down amongst the players.
It does. But
the
fans. Listen, sadly, Mansford, Geraghty, whoever else is in there, Blackpool fans, but they've got to start believing it.
Yeah,
it's not. You can get a long way, and listen, it's not far off what Holloway was going on about.
To say, look at the positivity that Holloway rode on. Yeah, he changed the mentality.
He came in and he said, "Bollocks to that. We are Blackpool. Look at the history. Yeah. Look at what we are. We are going to go into the Premier League."
It's true. We don't need 40,000 fans, but we should be growing the fan base by that success. At the end of the day, like I've said numerous times, I expected there to be a big push across the town for a lost period of time there, where that family kept us down, kept Blackpool as low as they could, and didn't want anyone to think big of it. Well, you know, it's going to take 10 years to get them kids turned into Blackpool fans in this town, and they should be pushing more on it. And I don't think they do. I think we act like a League One club still in various ways, and it's not good enough. It's not on. Like I said to you, I'd come on the fucking pool down the side of the tower, me, and I'd have the roads painted tangerine. They should turn the town tangerine and do whatever they can. And
well, Raggy, we've had enough of it. Some of us are all pretty much from a similar age, aren't we? Just before, slightly after Tim and Pete started going, but Nick, myself, and you, we were brought up on Division 4 and Division 3 constantly. Whereas Tim, Pete, your era and onwards, we are traditionally a kind of a second tier club, and that's kind of our natural position, and maybe just bobbing into the top division every now and then.
But that would have been unthinkable that'd have been unthinkable from the 70s back going backwards. It's only since we've had the likes of Cartmel and then the Oystons that those things happened.
And this is another thing as well, because people go on about all fans' expectations, and it's probably the older fans that don't have the expectations, and the younger ones do have it and want us to be up there and demand better, and there's nothing wrong with it. People say, we've got to get some perspective right. There's nothing wrong with it. They should be demanding better. They should be demanding permanent championship football and above, and there's nothing wrong with it, and it should. If people start being content, you're in League One and League Two. All the content fans in this country are in League One and League Two. I'm telling you, that's where them clubs are.
Raggy, we've actually got a squad that's more than capable of at least a mid-table finish.
Yeah, I know it. You know it. Everyone knows.
Having the life sucked out of them by this, this manager who, quite frankly, just gives all the vibes of not wanting to be here anyway. Forget about whether he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
What are they doing? Why is he here? I don't get it. I don't understand. How is he still here? What is wrong with him?
Well, I was thinking about this.
Go on, Go on. Sorry, go on.
Well, yeah, we were talking about on the WhatsApp last night, and I was racking my brains thinking, why have they not got rid yet? And I don't know, unless it's, we did see slight improvement, as Tim mentioned, in recent performances. We beat Forest, although that could have easily been 4-4 or 5-4 to them. We didn't batter them. We played well and took our chances. They missed some absolute sitters. And then we go to Watford full of positivity and get beat. And unless they're thinking we've backed him in the window early with those players coming in, we need to give him a chance to get those players playing. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just trying to think of a reason why they haven't acted yet. That they think, once they're up and running, maybe things improve. But I just think long term for me, I just don't see him being the right man to take us forward. We need pretty much, I don't know, probably not far off playoff form now to be getting those points per game up.
Well,
like nine wins we need. But I can't see them coming with him in charge.
We said that last night. He's been in charge of Blackpool for 41 games across 2 spells, and he's won 9 games. And now we need to win 9 games to stay up.
Okay, now we're doomed. We are doomed.
If they're into the figures and looking at statistics and that, I don't know what they're looking at, and I can't answer why he's still here, what they're doing, what's going on. But it's like Manny's decline, and I hope that's not true. But
just going back to the comment you had up before, John, the Appleton's comment post-match. I mean, that's an insult to the 1,500 who went to Watford, to me. And the last time I've seen a manager post, putting it bluntly, bullshit like that was Critchley, Preston away, when he said something similar, where we got absolutely battered and were useless. And I think as a manager, you've got to be honest. And if he thinks that performance was fine and it's fine margins, then he shouldn't manage Blackpool Football Club. End of, because he's delusional. Because we didn't have a shot on target other than that P-roller, and Watford were all over us with a team of kids. So if he thinks that's a fine performance for the Championship, that says he's not fit for purpose for me. And again, it almost feels like he's trying to get a reaction out of fans and or the board to pot him. I almost feel like he's trying to get potted. Because you don't say that. You don't say that when you've just been beaten 2-0 by a team of kids and make weights from a team who have got 17 people out, and you've got virtually a full team at your disposal, other than the usual sick notes who don't feature anyway. So I think that's almost like clickbait. It's almost like Adrian Durham says something like that.
Sack bait. Sack me bait.
Sack bait. To say, just to get the conversation, just to get people irate. Because when everybody saw that, the response was, "What the F, isn't it?"
What's he got to do? Has he got to stick his finger up bloody Sadler's ass to get sacked?
If he'd said that against Sheffield United or Sunderland or Hull, listen. That's a perfectly justified comment in the context of those games. Not Watford away when we've been absolutely destroyed by some kids.
Jez Evans has just said on Facebook, do the panel think the money is the issue with Appleton compensation, or is it something deeper? I'll just add my first foray into this. I think it's something to do with Mansford wanting to save face in the fact that he's made an absolute awful appointment in Michael Appleton employing his mate. That's one thing. The only thing I can think of.
Well, if paying Appleton off, and I don't believe for a minute they have to pay him off 4 years worth of contract. If
No.
paying Appleton a year or two's wages is the be all and end all of our football club, then we're knackered. So
Yeah, but
it can't be the money. It can't be the money.
They can
There'll be
save the
clauses
money if
in
they
it,
get rid
won't
of
there?
Mansford at the same time.
Yeah.
There's no way Simon Sadler has agreed a 4-year deal without break options.
No,
And the
there'll
break
be a get
option,
out clause.
what the break option might be triggered by relegation, for example. So it might be if we get relegated, then we can terminate a contract without notice. I don't know, and maybe that's why he's hanging in there. I really don't know. But if you're giving somebody a 4-year contract who has never mind, I don't think give anybody a 4-year contract. Full stop. But if you're giving somebody a 4-year contract who's got no championship pedigree, then you need we talked about the front or the bottom, didn't we, last week? You need to join the queue because it'd be mental. That would be mental. So I don't believe for 1 minute that it's a 4-year contract with no break. Now, they may have been trying to do a positive spin on it when they first put him in to show that they had faith in him, which is why they said it was a 4-year contract. But a 4-year contract with the break option after 2 years is a 2-year contract. It's not a 4-year contract. It's like when you do it. I know. If you do a lease, like if you've done a lease at Armfield and you've done a 15-year lease with break options at 5 and 10 years, it's a 5-year contract. It's not 15. But you might want to sell it as a 15, or in this case, a 4, to create positivity where there's otherwise negativity to show that he was that good. You gave him that deal. But there's no way in God's earth he's getting 4 years, or 3.5 or 3 years pay if we pot him. It won't happen.
Well, Tim, that begs the question then, and this to the room: why are they not getting rid of him then? If that's not the problem,
Well, my understanding,
and the fact that sorry, Pete, just come into 2 secs, and the fact that the board are not addressing anyone will just further add fuel to these rumours that are coming from all angles.
Well, I think in terms of not addressing anyone, they can probably only say something when they've got something to say, which will be in terms of he's gone. I think if they come out and say we're backing him, Twitter will break, because it went mental when they put a tweet on saying we're getting some retro shirts in yesterday. So I think until they've got a statement to say, thanks, Michael, you're on your way, then there won't be a statement, because it'll probably, if it's anything other than he's gone, it's going to wind people up.
The dreaded
They were
vote
quick
of
quick to tell us to
vote of confidence.
They were quick to tell us to
Remember
shut
that?
up when
yeah, they were.
there was a lot of disgruntlement at the beginning. We haven't heard any of Dickie Bird. I can't remember the last
Since
time.
then, and that was bloody arrogant and rude, to be honest. My understanding, going back to the Mansford and Appleton, my understanding, I've heard from a few sources that it was Sadler is the one that really wanted Appleton, not Mansford, and it was him that was desperate to have him.
That's a good point. That's a good point from Steve Hutchin. I think the board recognised Appleton wasn't backed well enough in the summer and trying to make amends with their support for him.
Well, I mentioned that before, John, that we've moved quite early in the transfer window, haven't we, and brought 3 players in. You'd like to think there's a centre half going to come in, especially with Marv. I haven't seen an update today, but it mentioned hamstring. So with our luck with hamstrings, it'll be 4 months, because it never seems to be the shorter end of it when we have players with hamstrings injuries. So they're perhaps thinking, because we backed him a bit, and we didn't really in the summer, did we? And I think whoever came in, when you look at the players we lost or we've lost through injury, that first half of the season was always going to be a bit of a struggle. And that's why you mentioned before, a lot of people were kind of 50-50. I was prior to the January window. For those reasons, you lost Bowler, Keshi, we lost Keogh, Sterling at right back. He was steady and playing regularly. So we lost some key players, and then you had the injuries on top of it. And you look at the players we brought in, jury's out on Thompson for me. Same with Williams. and Callum Wright's no longer a Blackpool player anymore. So we know how poor it was in the summer. So you think, right, you're probably judging when he's been backed. And you could say, well, one game isn't necessarily enough. But I think the turning point for so many people, me included, was what we've talked about, that positivity, a bit of a reset for January, second half of the season. Let's see what we can do. And he goes and does that at Watford. And it's like two fingers up to everyone. And I think for a lot of people, it was like, right, I've just had enough now. Prepared to give him chance because he didn't have the players he wanted. We fannied about so much with Cameron Brannigan in the summer. We've gone and got a defensive midfielder. You think, right, okay. And he hasn't made the best use of what he had available at Watford. And it just feels like, right, well, if you, like Tim says, it's two fingers up and you think, well, sod it, I've had enough. And I think for a lot of people, that's what it was. It was that kind of, right, that's it. It's a turning point. And it's a results business at the end of the day, isn't it? And we've, Forest aside, it's been poor for a long, long time. And last season you're always going to go on runs in the Championship where it's difficult and you're not picking many points up. Particularly with our budget, we know we're up against it. You've got teams spending way above their means and teams who've got ridiculous amounts of parachute payments. It's always going to be tough. You could go 5, 6, 7 games or whatever where you're only getting the odd point here and there. But with Critchley, like Tim said before, the 4-3-3 wasn't working, so he was prepared to adapt and play your two holding midfielders and make us difficult to beat. And it wasn't particularly attractive football, but we ticked along, didn't we? And we might lose a couple of them, but we'd win one, draw one, and we picked up points as we went. And he seems to be so arrogant that he just won't change. And it's like, I'm going to carry on doing what I'm doing regardless of what's happening until you sack me. And it's getting, and yeah, you can argue, right, he's got these players in, he needs time to bed them in, but we don't have time now. Like I said before, we've got to turn up some sort of form now between now and the end of the season, and I can't see him being the man to do it. So for me, it's time for him to go.
I think Sean said that, didn't he, right before he joined the dark side, that he would stick with 4-3-3 religiously. He would not change.
He did. Yeah. Speaking of
He was
Sean, right. The next talking point is damning data, Tim. I've written, why is a manager without a win in 10 games, 4 points from an available 30 and a worse win percentage than, and this will blow your socks off, a worse win percentage than Neil McDonald, Paul Ince, Colin Hendry and Nigel Worthington. Why is this man still in a job at Blackpool?
It does beg the question, doesn't it? I mean, maybe he's been a little bit fortuitous by the World Cup break, because I think that the poor run had started then, but it was still in its fairly early stages, because we'd had the good results against Preston, which gave him a few brownie points. We had the good win against Coventry, and then we sort of hit the skids when we played the Birminghams, the West Broms, the Wigans, and then we had a break, and already people were calling then that we needed a change. I remember, I think Raggy was one of the first ones to do it, and maybe he's bought a bit of time because the results, whilst we've lost a lot of games since we've come back, probably Saturday was the worst performance of them all that I can, if I'm thinking back through them, I'm trying to. But most certainly it was up there with one of the worst performances. But sometimes I think you've got to recognise that the statistics are so compelling that they're very, very hard to ignore. When you combine the results he's achieved with Blackpool first time round, albeit it was difficult circumstances, but he had Holloway's team still. He had a very good team then. And,
great point.
And he's come here and he's listen, we're second bottom in there's no getting away from where we are in the league. And he's never, his Lincoln team, I know he was ill, but his Lincoln team finished 17th, I think, in his last season there before he got potted. So in what planet is anybody thinking that he's the man to cement our place in the Championship when we've had to deal with the sort of fairly difficult scenario of Critchley jumping ship at short notice. For me, you want a relative amount of experience, but you want somebody who's going to entertain and who's going to take you to the next level and have the contacts at the Championship level that you need to bring the right players in. And I'm not sure that,
and not just
well,
anyone.
I'm not sure. I don't think he
anyone who
has.
used to play for Lincoln.
Well, that's it. That's what we get, isn't it? It's the Lincoln connections, but
and they're shit. So why is that a good thing as well?
The high watermark of Lincoln's is losing to us in the playoff final.
Yeah. The high watermark. That's another good one, Tim. Remember that. Okay, where do we go?
I don't want to say Ian Holloway because I know Nick will explode. But
you've said Ian Holloway for a week. I mean,
I've said it.
Who's next then? Who's next? Raggy, who do you think? Let's say a dream situation happens. Appleton gets sacked tomorrow. You can bring in a dream team, either temporary or full time.
It's got to be realistic.
Yeah.
If we sack the manager, do you think they'll bring in someone temporary, or?
Well, we have to. Well, obviously, it's a point that you get asked a lot when you say you want him gone. People, who would you have? Well, I don't know because I'm not a bleeding in the footballing world. I don't know who's available and what kind of characters they are. But right now, we need someone that's going to come in here, get the place bouncing, give us that. We're the underdogs now. We've got to use that now. We've got to become the underdog and get ourselves up and whip that ground up into a frenzy and start to. So whoever's got that about him now, that might be there might be a youth team coach knocking around the club that's into that kind of thing. I don't know. Might be Gary Medine. He might be into that kind of thing. I don't know. All I know is we are definitely going down with Appleton. So he's got to change it for somebody. Give us half a chance. It's not going to get any worse.
The Chris Wilder one's the interesting one, isn't it? Because you might persuade him on a short-term contract.
Yeah,
to do it to the end of the season because he's
absolutely brilliant. They're brilliant, and if it works out, great. And if they could get hold of him, great. And if he, even better on a short-term contract for him financially, I would imagine, because I would imagine he wants a few quid. But we are a Championship football club now. We've got to pay a few quid as well.
Do you know who I'd like?
We got £2 million for Critchley.
And the fourth for Bowler.
And Bowler. And, maybe we turf a few of these injuries, bleeding.
And the 6 for Yates.
And the 6
for Yates. Don't go there, Pete. No, don't go there. Don't go there. Don't go there. Right.
And the old rod.
Let's go round the room then and each have a pick. I think Richie Wellens would be a good appointment. I think he's a decent manager. I think he'd come here. I know he's employed at the moment. I think he'd come to Blackpool. He gets teams playing the right way, and he's been reasonably successful where he is, and he's used to not working or working within constraints. But I think if he joined Blackpool, it would be the air quotes richest club that he'll have played for, and he'd have the best budget. And I think he'd do a really good job, Richie.
Would he not jump ship to go to Stockport though?
What?
Well, he didn't. He left for Stockport, didn't he? And said they were a bigger club than us or something. Was that not him? When did Wellens go after he left us?
When he was playing, do you mean?
Yeah.
Went to Donny, did he?
Did he not go to Stockport? Where did he go?
Don't think so.
Went to Donny.
MB's just said he's killing it at Orient. Richie would come back to Blackpool in a heartbeat. Northwest club, bigger budget. And I think Richie Wellens would do a great job.
I think his family's, I don't know whether he's moved down, but his family all lives around here as well, don't they? So
he's very, very high regarded in Swindon.
Well, that's it then.
Well, he did a very good job there. I think he's done a good job, whichever club he's been at.
Yeah, I was mixing Wellens up with Megson. It was Megson who went to Stockport.
I was going to say, yeah.
Keith Mercer and Kevin Stonehouse. Do you remember that? You're losing it, Tim.
I know. It's a bit senility, I think.
Did you just get Megson mixed up with Wellens then?
Yeah, it was.
Wellens said it about he went to Oldham, didn't he? A few people mentioned it in the chat.
Yeah,
Said
Wellens
it
did
about
say
Oldham.
something when he left, and I can't remember what he said, but I was just mixing the.
Yeah, but
I
yeah,
mixed up where he went.
you can't have that. You can't hold a stick to beat Wellens with not wanting to play for the
Well,
fucking
we
Oysters, can
can.
you? Can you?
Anything.
Richie Wellens got a lot of unnecessary and undeserved shit off Blackpool fans, I think.
He did.
But he was
he
always
put
a
good
pantomime villain. He used to.
He
play
was.
with it.
He was a
He was
great
just honest,
player.
though, wasn't he?
He played the right way as well, and he plays good football.
He was a great player for us, I've got to say.
Yeah, he was.
And he's honest as well. So Richie Wellens would be my pick. Tim.
Listen, if Luke, I have a WhatsApp group that Luke is in, and he knows some players who played for Wilder, and they all say he's just like another level, and he would definitely keep Blackpool up because he's so tactically astute. And I think sometimes you've got to look at where you are and where you could end up, and how difficult it is to get out of League One again, and wonder whether it's worth the roll of the dice to the end of the season with a decent bonus if he keeps us up, because it could take us. Listen, we spent 29 years down there after going down in 1978, and at the time everybody thought Blackpool would bounce straight back up, and we never did. And it's all right. They talk about we can be a yo-yo club. I said this on the chat last night that we're having. There's about 2 teams who've done that, maybe 3 who've done that reasonably effectively over the last 5 years, and that's Hull, Rotherham, and Wigan. But for every Hull, Rotherham, and Wigan, there are teams who can't then get out of League One. There's your Sheffield Wednesdays. Ipswich might be doing it this year, but they've been down there a lot longer than they thought. Sunderland were down there a lot longer than they thought.
Surely we don't want to aspire to be a bloody yo-yo club.
Well, no, but we almost this is what you keep hearing, isn't it? And I think
it harks back to what Raggy was saying, Tim, about want more for our club. Don't want to be a yo-yo.
So I would. I know some people say, well, we can't afford to pay. We can't afford to play a player, something like that. But that's the mentality where we didn't sign Shane Given for the second half of the season when we needed to cover a specialist position, and that cost us our Premier League place.
Could sack Ben Mansford. That's 300 grand already off the wage bill. Yeah. Give that to Chris Wilder.
I mean, I don't know, but we're only talking about hiring him for 5 months anyway. So
that's your 300 grand to pay him,
or use some of the Critchley money.
Yeah.
Which we got allegedly we got a 7-figure sum, 2 million, I think, was the figure banded around. Whether that's right or not, I don't know. But we'd most certainly got a payoff, and we haven't used it. Now, well, Simon might say, understandably, well, I've used it to augment the shortfall that's otherwise been suffered elsewhere. But that's fine. But if we get relegated, that's going to put Blackpool back, in my view, probably 5 years at least. And I think, so for me, that would be the ideal. I hear the argument for Richie Wellens, despite my senility over what he said and which team he went to.
I think Wellens is more of a long-term appointment as well, Tim, given his age.
Yeah, but sometimes you can't get hold of those managers at short notice. I'm thinking if we can get hold of a manager who's currently between jobs, a good manager, and maybe pay them a bonus for keeping us up. We've got the team. We just need it organising properly, and we need belief instilling in them, and we need the fans to get a bit of a buzz, to get behind the team and create the atmosphere that we had, particularly last season. That's what we need. We don't need the negativity that that Appleton brings with him, both on the pitch and off the pitch. We can't afford it.
Gurney says, does he have a knobber tattoo though?
No, that's to Finn Needham's mentioned Gareth Ainsworth. Obviously expressed.
No, we don't want him. Plays decent football. What?
He's got
probably overachieved with Wickham, hasn't he? But
right, Nick, who do you want then? Go on.
Well, I think in your ideal world, I'd agree with Tim and Wilder, but I think realistically, he's probably going to be waiting for a job up at the other end of the table, where he'll get probably a lot more money to spend. Be great if we could get him to the end of the season, because he'd certainly keep us up, get us well organised, and probably playing decent football. there was a mention of there was something in the paper a couple of weeks ago saying we had someone lined up if we potted Appleton, and I can't remember. He was a coach at Man United. I think it was a bit like the Critchley one, out a bit left of field. Someone who's kind of worked his way up at Old Trafford and done very well at developing young players. His name escapes me, so it might already.
30.
You what? Sorry, Pete.
He's only about 30. He's a free kick coach specialist.
Right? Yeah. So
parachuting him in this scenario could be,
I know. Yeah, I think it would be. Yeah,
I'm not saying Nick.
Yeah, I'm not saying he would be my choice. Just that there'd been a report that we already had someone lined up. So yeah, I don't know. It's a difficult one.
So go on then. Nick, let's get a few names then, Nick. So let's say Chris Wilder doesn't happen. Who's your pick?
Gosh, Wellens probably isn't a bad shout. I think we've got to remember last time as well, there weren't loads of people queuing up for it, were there? And there might not be this time with where we are on our league position, unfortunately. Who else is out of work recently? Liam Richardson did okay at Wigan. I don't know. It's
Dobby. Let's discuss Dobby.
Well, yeah, if it was really short term, so say they've got someone they know they want to get and it might take 2 or 3 games, then you probably would promote someone from the youth team. And to be fair, he's done very, very well. Whether it's a long-term option, it's a big step up, isn't it? I think he'd be really popular because he was such a popular player, but that doesn't necessarily just translate to being able to perform as a manager at this level. He'd probably need someone decent alongside him if he hasn't already in the youth team. So it's probably a short-term option. See how we go, and then if it's all right, give it him to the end of the season, and then see what we do.
Okay, to close the show out, Pete, give us your pick, and we'll call it an evening.
Wilder's not a bad shout, and Wellens as well. The W's, I think they're a pretty good shout. I mean, everyone knows I've got a soft spot for Ollie, and I'd love to see him back, but it's not going to happen. They're never going to. They've picked Appleton and bloody Grayson, 2 of the worst bloody managers going, and ignored him completely. I wouldn't mind seeing Tomo back in a coaching role, maybe with Dobby. He's
anyone but Appleton. All these options sound a million times better than Appleton. All of them.
And I'll tell you what. Nathan Jones. I know he's horrible, but he might be available soon because bloody Southampton, the rock bottom of the Premier League, aren't they? He's horrible,
I think he'd be a really good fit, Pete. I think for us because
he'd be a great,
not too dissimilar from Luton and just getting them believing again. But I don't know. They've had a couple of okay results, haven't they? So he might be sticking around for a bit there.
Yeah,
Mike Bassett from
4-4.
Fred Bassett.
Right, any closing statements? From anyone? Anything else in your minds before we go?
I'm hearing Pateta might be out for a while. So we might be looking for a centre back as well as all the other positions. To be honest, I'm okay with it.
Do we know how long Pavada's out for?
Hopefully not. I think did he not do his ankle?
I think it was just a precaution on it.
Groin, wasn't it?
Groin.
We don't hear any actual useful information or news that we want from the club, do we? We just hear about retro kit launches and happy birthday messages to Grimmy.
Grimmy. Those threads yesterday were fantastic read because it was like give him a game for his birthday and listen, it's just endemic at the moment, isn't it? It's this negativity that pervades the club. That when to be fair, the media team are trying to put stuff out there, and it almost reminds me of the Oyston times when when Stuart Hudson used to put stuff out, and it just got a stream of negativity. No matter what we put out, it's just a stream of negativity, and it was like that yesterday. And interestingly, he's leaving, isn't he? He's actually leaving the club. I think he's finished now, or he's finished at the end of this week. And he was there. He's been there for an extremely long period of time. And I remember the first game back, when we came back in as the interim board, his face just seemed to change because all of a sudden he was getting all this positivity, and it must be very difficult to deal with that. And the club have got to recognise that, they need to cut the head off that problem and let the club thrive and do what it can do. And the longer Appleton stays, it's just going to get more and more toxic. So, but yeah, Looks like we might be without Ekpateta for a few weeks, from what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that's bad because he's just starting. He was actually really good again on Saturday at the back.
Yeah, he's found his feet, hasn't he? You know, he's. I mean, I suppose at least we've got a couple of options now. We can play. You can play Andy Lyons left back as well as right back, can't you? So, and you can bring Hubby inside, but it's not ideal. Maybe Connolly gets a game at centre back where he supposedly can play as well. It's
just typical, isn't it? We all upbeat the other day, got all these players in, and now we've got Marvin out and Paveda out. I mean, Paveda was, inspirational in the last 2 games.
Compare and contrast our mood going into that Watford game to now.
I know.
It's unbelievable, isn't it?
Yeah.
A week's a long time in football.
And on that note, I think we'll call it an evening there. So start playing the outro music. Right, thanks a lot for your company this evening, gents. It's been a great chat. And I think it's something we all needed to get off our chests, didn't we?
Indeed. Therapeutic.
Okay, so if we get the numbers together, we'll probably be doing a preview show on Thursday or Friday. Keep an eye on our socials to keep updated on that. One more thing before you go, please subscribe to this channel if you're watching on YouTube. It'll just help us grow, and all that remains to be said is thanks for watching, thanks for downloading, and Appleton out. We won't say up the pool, let's say Appleton out.
Apples out.
Apples out.
Appleton out.
Apples out.
And up the pool.